Hi again, and welcome to another episode of Get Off My Lawn. I'm your host, Tom Curley. Today we're going to be talking about Nazis. Not these Nazis, these Nazis. Now, I know that in the media, you are never supposed to call a politician, or anybody else for that matter, a Nazi. It's, it's bad form.
Now, stop it! We're playing this game according to Master Jack's rules. Bad form.
But the Nazis I talk about admit that they're Nazis. And then there's this guy. He hasn't said he's a Nazi, but he sure as hell is acting like one, which brings me to my next point. Nazis are bad. This isn't an opinion, it's a fact. Now, the problem is we seem to live in a world where facts are considered by many to be identical to opinions. That doesn't make them any less factual. And the fact is, Nazis are bad. White supremacists are bad. White nationalists are bad. A Nazi by any other name is still a Nazi. Now, despite this, there's been a huge rise in Nazism, white supremacy, hate crimes, and massacres in this country and in the world. The latest horrific massacre is, I don't know, what day is it? Take a while back, there was one in New Zealand, which was, by the way, live streamed on Facebook. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, what was worse is that it was reposted over 1 million times on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. How many sick fucks are there out there? Turns out way more than I imagined. Now, they were always out there. But until about 8 years ago, they had the decency to stay hidden under the rocks under which they lived. But what changed? What made them come out from under their slimy rocks to proudly proclaim their hatred, their racism, their misogyny? The white nationalist in chief Adolf Hitler got elected president. Since then, a Nazi nutjob living in a van covered with alt-right posters and pictures of Herr Twitler sent pipe bombs to 2 former living presidents and all sorts of media folk. Another one shot up a concert in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, another bunch of right-wing nutjobs committed mass murder somewhere. And that was just a few years ago. What a fine crew they are. Yes, good people on both sides. There are so many hideous crimes that after a while the details blur together. No matter how horrible Cheesy McCheeseface behaves, like refusing to condemn Nazis who committed murder in Charlottesville, dumping on John McCain for having the nerve to get caught and allow himself to be tortured for years in a Vietnamese prison camp, and he's recently said that he will, if reelected, declare martial law on his first day in office and arrest all of his enemies. And he has a buttload of enemies, and Republicans and his base continue to support him. Well, there goes the neighborhood. Although his base is a minority in the U.S., they comprise a lot of people. Too many people. So the question remains, how do we relatively sane people deal with these assholes? Now, I disagreed when Hillary Clinton famously called these folks deplorables. Why? Because they owned it. And they started wearing t-shirts that said, "Proud deplorable." She should have called them assholes. Why? Because how cool would it be to see hundreds of thousands of these morons parading around in public wearing t-shirts saying, "I'm a proud asshole"? Now, a while back, a few years back, an odd thing started happening. The MAGA hat wearing public started to complain that they were being discriminated against. They were being publicly shamed. They're victims. They're being picked on because of their MAGA hats, or if you shorten it, maggots. There are even websites and apps out there that tell them what restaurants they can go to, where they can be sure that nobody will make fun of them. Sort of a green book for red hats. But you know, this shaming is a good thing. If we've learned anything in the last 7 years, We've learned you can't talk to these folks. No matter how many facts you present, these morons will only believe what the hater-in-chief says. They're a cult. Now, I'm not the first person to say this, and you can't have a rational conversation with a cultist. Now, all cults are essentially the same. They only believe in the leader. Everybody else outside the cult is the enemy. Everybody not in the cult is out to get them. The cult leader has secret information that only he or she possesses, and that information is always the same. The leader was anointed by God to be their leader. As often as not, the hidden information is that the leader is actually God, or Jesus. Everyone tends to forget that in most cults, the end comes when the leader goes stark raving mad, has sex with all the female members, regardless of their age, and decides everybody needs to kill themselves. Now, the problem with this cult is that it's got millions of members. That's a lot of Kool-Aid. We're going to need more Kool-Aid. So, what do we do with these maggots, these Nazis? I say, let's treat them the way they treat other minorities. If you see them on the street, cross the street. You never know when they're going to become violent. If you see them in a store, follow them around to make sure they don't steal anything. Oh, and don't argue with them. It's like teaching a pig to fly. You frustrate yourself and you annoy the pig. Shun them. Turn your backs on them. Walk away. Give them all the message in the one language they understand.
We don't serve their kind here.
This episode is very sadly current and very up to date. And you ask, why do I say that? Well, because this was originally from a blog that I wrote over 4 years ago, and it's only gotten worse. Well, that's all for this episode. Be sure to click, comment, subscribe, like, poke, prod, punch, tickle, or whatever the hell you're supposed to do on these sites. And be sure to check out my favorite websites, Serendipity, Seeking Intelligent Life on Earth, getting harder and harder to do every day. Voicescapes Audio Theater for the best in audio comedy and drama, a half-hour radio show, that cult hit is back, and my sister podcast, Media War Stories, behind-the-scenes tales from the front lines of the media. Well, thanks for watching. Now get off my lawn.